Here's my thermometer. And you can tell that the line on the thermometer goes up to right here, which is kind of hard to tell on my paper. It might even be kind of hard to tell on your paper. When you look at a scale, which this is basically nothing more than a number line that's cut into little chunks, what is the first thing you should think? Your first thought, I don't want to know what the measurement, I don't want to know what this reads, I want you to know what you should think. When you see a scale, wow, it's going to be a long math class for you here. You want to think about what each mark stands for. For example, a good thing of that is when you look at your rulers are cut into inches and they're cut into, your ruler, if you have an inch here and this is your inch part of your ruler, it's cut into all these little marks here. You need to know what does each mark stand for. Well, what is this? Well, these are 1/16ths of an inch or 1/8ths of an inch. How do you figure out what it is? Let's take a look at this thermometer. Oops, if I can get it any closer. You can't really, maybe you can see it on yours, can you? Do you see the scale on yours? Kind of. What I mean, not what? Still not gonna? Yes.
Wow.
It's like going to the eye doctor. Better or worse? That might be worse. In other words, you look here, and between 0 and 20, that part is cut up into a bunch of different notches, which is really hard to see on mine. Okay, but what would this have? What would this measurement have to be? Between 0 and 20, halfway between 0 and 20, it has to be
10.
Why do you suppose they didn't put the 10 there? Because there really isn't enough room, it'd be really confusing, so they left it out. Now, between 10 and 0, you've got all the little tick marks. That is what you need to figure out. What does each tick mark stand for? Does it stand for 1? Does it stand for 2? Does it stand for 5? Does it stand for 3? Well, and what you do is, and by the way, the second thing you should think about is, when you do this stuff, write this down in words, you need to count spaces, not the tick marks. Because if you count ticks, you can confuse yourself pretty easy. You want to know how many spaces, how many units there are between that. So, let's say, can I do this even bigger? I don't think this will. This technology is for the birds, by the way. Oh. Why won't it, what's it even doing? It doesn't work. It doesn't work very well when. Okay. Uh-oh, I'm in trouble. I don't know how big I can get this. Let's go. Now I know it's really not very clear. Let me get rid of this. But maybe you can see it, maybe you can't, I don't know. Between, this was 10 and this is 0, I believe there are 1, 2, 3, 4, that many tick marks. Here's my big long line and here's my line here. So again, this is what I said, you want to count the spaces, not the tick marks. And if you count the spaces, there's 1 space, 2 space, 3 space, 4 space, 5 spaces between 0 and 10. That means each space must be 2 degrees. So this little tick mark stands for 2 degrees, and then this would be 4 degrees, this would be 6 degrees, that would be 8 degrees, and then right there is why we get 10 degrees there. That is the first thing, because that is not the case with everything. If I go to the bathroom scale, where did it go?
No.
There it is.
That's gorgeous.
Hold on.
Look
That almost hurts my eyes.
Yeah.
If you look at the bathroom scale, okay, this is 0. I believe this is 20.
Yep.
And right between 20 would have to be 10. And look, this is only cut into 2 notches there. So if we go from 0 to 10 and it's cut in 2 pieces, what does each piece have to be? Madison?
5.
Right, so this is 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 15 pounds, 20 pounds. That's the first thing you have to figure out is what is the scale that you are using. Is it cut into 5? Does each one stand for 5? Sometimes they only stand for 1. I would try to find my speedometer, but I don't know if I can. Whoa! I think I might shrink this down because that's really killing me.
Yeah, it's not.
Alright, so this gauge right here, okay, this is PSI, pounds per square inch. I don't know what it measures, but what gets that high. What does each tick mark mean? Well, again, you gotta take 2 that you know. I know this, and I know this. That goes from 1,000 to 1,500, so that amount of space is, how many? 500, right? Each one of these spaces between that, how many spaces are there? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So if you take 500 and split it up into 10 pieces, each hash mark will have to stand for, Zach? 50. Every one of these is 50 psi. So if this little gauge pointed to right here, that would be 2,050. Then it'd be 2,100, 2,150, 2,200, 250. So you just have to look at the scales. Maybe we should just make this. Can I go back to full? Bam. Now back to usual. Over here on the left over here, I've got a speedometer and a tachometer. What is this one reading at? Tell me what, this is kilometers, so you're not going 200 miles per hour.
Okay, what kind of car
This is in kilometers per hour. It looks like it's a, whatever. What do you say it is? 200 what? Kilometers per hour. Right? 205. Do we agree on that or do we not agree on that? Zach says? You agree? Alright, Zach does agree. Well, look at it. Between, what color can I use? I'm gonna use white.
Yeah.
White to kill. Between 200 and 220, how many spaces are there? 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you take 20, cut it into 4 equal pieces, each one has to be 5. So this is 205, 210, 215, 220 miles an hour. And what about the tachometer over there? By the way, it's always good to look at this. If you can read that, that says times 1,000. That's in revolutions per minute. So this would be 1,000. Instead of writing 1,000 out, they just write it times 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. How many spaces? What's this cut into between 4 and 5? Actually, it looks like it goes right in the middle anyway, so it doesn't really matter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 spaces. Each one is worth 100. So this is going, what's this tachometer say? Lauren? 4,500. Each one of those little notches is 100. Shabam, everybody's happy. Oh, we never did the temperature. What temperature is that reading right there? By the way, this side over here is Fahrenheit. That's what we usually use. Mostly because we are creatures of habit. Why is Celsius so much better than Fahrenheit? Anybody? Think of the logic there, Aaron.
It goes by
It does go by tens, but it makes sense because 0 degrees Celsius is what? Yeah, it's when water freezes. 100 degrees Celsius is when it boils. What do we use? 32 for freezing and 212. Ooh, why would you pick those numbers for those? I mean, we base everything on water when it freezes and when it boils. You know, and then they just split that into 100 equal pieces and blah, 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 blah. But here you go. So this went up to here. How many degrees is that? It looks like it is 25 degrees Celsius. Is that about what it is? Looks like 25 degrees Celsius. How many degrees is about 25 degrees Celsius is about how many degrees Fahrenheit? On the Fahrenheit scale, looking at this scale, what is that mark there going to stand for? Layton?
74.
I think 74 would be right about here.
78.
I would go 78 degrees. There's a big mathematical formula that you can use for that, but that's neither here, it might be there.